My brother stole my car, then blamed me for it, so I filed charges, took the insurance check, and bought a better one. He'll never touch him, a 28-year-old guy, and I've always been the responsible one in my family. You know the type, the one who pays his bills on time, helps his parents with chores, and never asks for anything in return. Meanwhile, my younger brother Jake, he's the golden child. Charming, impulsive. The kind of guy who could mess up royally and still have everyone laughing 5 minutes later. It was always, cut Jake some slack. He's still learning, even when we were both adults. He'd bounce from job to job, always with a new excuse, while I quietly picked up the slack around the house. My parents never meant to play favorites, at least that's what I told myself, but deep down, I could feel it. I was the safety net, and Jake was the one they kept rescuing from his own messes. When I finally bought my first car, it wasn't just a vehicle, it was freedom. Years of saving, double shifts, and saying no to vacations had led to that moment. I remember the smell of new leather, the shine of the paint under the sun. It felt like proof that hard work did pay off. But Jake saw it differently. He started with little requests. Hey, can I borrow it for a quick errand? Or my car's in the shop just for today. Every time it came back with low fuel or a new scratch, my parents brushed it off as brotherly sharing. But each time, I felt something inside me tighten. It wasn't about the car. It was about respect. Still, I stayed silent. It was easier than fighting. But lately, I'd noticed something in Jake's tone, a hint of jealousy when I mentioned work, or when neighbors complimented my car. It was subtle, but it lingered like smoke, and I didn't know it yet. But that small resentment was about to ignite into something much worse. The morning it happened started like any other. I woke up early, made coffee, and glanced out the window. The driveway was empty. My car was gone. For a few seconds, I stood there, blinking like maybe I'd parked it somewhere else and forgotten. But I hadn't. The keys weren't on the hook either. My stomach dropped. Panic hit fast. I ran outside, checked the street, the garage, even called the tow yard, thinking maybe it had been mistaken for an abandoned car. Nothing. That's when I called the police. My voice trembled as I explained. My car's been stolen. They said they'd send someone to take a report. While I waited, I texted Jake, half joking. You didn't happen to take my car, did you? No reply. I called him, straight to voicemail. By the time the officer showed up, my parents had heard about it. They arrived looking annoyed, not worried. My mom actually said, "Are you sure you didn't just forget where you parked it?" I stared at her, speechless. My dad chimed in, "Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Don't go involving the police yet." That word misunderstanding made my blood boil. They didn't get it. This wasn't just a car. It was years of sacrifice sitting somewhere in a stranger's hands. Hours passed. No word from Jake. I tried calling again and again until, finally, a text popped up. "Chill, bro." I just took it for a spin. Don't freak out. For a second, everything went silent. My heart pounded in my ears. I called him immediately, but he didn't answer. Instead, he sent another message. "Relax, I'll bring it back later." I stood there gripping my phone so hard, my knuckles turned white. My parents looked relieved. "See? It's fine." But I knew deep down this wasn't fine at all, because if Jake thought he could just take what wasn't his, this was only the beginning. That night, I barely slept. I kept pacing, checking my phone, waiting for Jake to show up, or at least call. By morning, there was still nothing. Then my phone rang, an unfamiliar number. When I answered, a calm but serious voice said, "Sir, we've located your vehicle." My chest tightened. "Is it okay?" I asked. The officer hesitated. "You'll need to come down to the impound lot. It's been involved in an accident." When I got there, my heart dropped. My car, my pride, my reward for years of hard work was sitting there crushed, the front end folded like paper. The hood bent, airbags deployed, windshield shattered. I could barely breathe. I just stared at it, numb, while the officer explained that witnesses saw a young man lose control near a ditch. Jake's description matched exactly. I called him. No answer. Called again. Voicemail. When he finally picked up hours later, his tone was defensive. "Why are you blowing up my phone?" "Because you wrecked my car, Jake." "Do you have any idea what you've done?" He scoffed. "Oh, come on. You act like I stole it. You told me I could use it any time." "What?" "No, I didn't." You took it without asking." He laughed bitterly. "You're overreacting. It's just a car." Just a car. That line burned through me when our parents got involved. It got worse. My mom said, "Honey, he didn't mean it." "Accidents happen," my dad added. "Don't make this bigger than it is. The insurance will take care of it." But I wasn't just angry. I was betrayed. My brother had lied, stolen from me, and wrecked something I worked years for. And instead of accountability, I got guilt-tripped. So while they defended him, I made a quiet decision. I filed the official police report this time, naming Jake as the unauthorized driver. And I knew, once I did, there was no going back. The moment the report was filed, everything changed. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, first from Jake, then from my parents. When I finally answered, my mom's voice was shaking. "How could you do this to your brother?" she snapped. "He's scared out of his mind, and now you've made it official." I clenched my jaw. "He stole my car, Mom. He crashed it." What else was I supposed to do? You didn't have to ruin his future over one mistake. She cried. "One mistake?" I shouted back. "He's been getting away with things his whole life. I'm done covering for him." My dad chimed in, his tone cold and final. "You're being selfish. He's your brother." "Then maybe he should have acted like one," I muttered and hung up. That's when the rumors started. Jake was too quick to rewrite the story. He told everyone I'd let him borrow the car, that I had crashed it, and blamed him to save face. It spread through our relatives like wildfire. Suddenly, cousins who used to respect me were texting, "Man, what's going on? Did you really try to frame Jake?" Every message cut deeper. I tried to explain, but people only heard what they wanted to hear. Jake had always been the charming one, the storyteller. I was the serious brother, the one easy to believe, as controlling or overreacting. One night, my aunt called, the kind of aunt who always plays peacekeeper. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "maybe just drop it. For the family's sake." I almost laughed. For the family's sake, the same family that turned its back on me the moment I demanded fairness by the end of that week. I wasn't just dealing with a wrecked car. I was dealing with a wrecked reputation. My brother had stolen from me, lied about it. And somehow, I was the villain. And deep down, I could feel it. The fight was only getting started. The next few weeks felt like living inside a storm I couldn't escape. I was juggling police calls, insurance paperwork, and endless family drama. Everyone seemed to have an opinion except the people who mattered most, the ones who should have stood by me. When the insurance investigator finally reached out, I was ready. They asked about the accident, the driver, and permission. I gave them everything, the report, the texts, even screenshots of Jake admitting he took it for a spin. The investigator nodded slowly. "We'll need to verify these details, but it looks like you've done everything by the book." Meanwhile, Jake was busy doing the opposite. I started hearing whispers that he'd shown our parents fake texts, messages supposedly from me saying, "Sure, just be careful with it." When I confronted him, he smirked. "Prove they're fake." "You seriously edited messages to cover yourself?" I demanded. He shrugged. "You're not the only one who can play smart." That was the moment I realized Jake wasn't panicking. He was scheming. My parents called that night, furious. The investigator called us. My dad said, "They're asking about your relationship with Jake. Do you know how humiliating this is?" I laughed bitterly. "Humiliating for you? Try being accused of lying after my own brother wrecked my life." Mom sighed heavily. "Why can't you just let it go? You'll get the car fixed." "No," I said firmly. "I'm not letting this go. Not this time." They didn't get it. It wasn't about the car anymore. It was about respect, about standing up to years of being the scapegoat. That night, while going through the wreckage photos, I found something small but important. My dashcam SD card, still intact. I hadn't thought much about it before, but suddenly, it felt like a lifeline. It might be the one thing Jake couldn't twist in his favor. I didn't waste a second. I plugged the dashcam card into my laptop, half expecting it to be corrupted. But when the files loaded, my heart started pounding. The footage was grainy but clear, and there he was. Jake, sitting behind the wheel, laughing with some guy I didn't recognize. At first, it looked like a casual drive. Then I heard it, Jake's voice. "Man, relax. My brother never checks the mileage. He's so uptight, it's hilarious." The passenger laughed. "You sure he's cool with this?" Jake smirked. He'll never know. We just gotta drop off this package and head back. That single sentence froze me. Drop off this package. I skipped ahead in the footage. The car sped down unfamiliar streets, the two of them talking about money and getting it done before dark. Then the crash. The screen shook violently, glass cracking, then silence. My stomach twisted. I took the footage to the investigator the next morning. She raised her eyebrows. You said your brother took the car without permission, right? Yes, I said quietly. But it looks like he was doing something worse. Within a few days, the police reached out again, this time with more questions. Jake's friend from the video had a record. He'd already confessed to running errands for a small-time dealer, using my car that day to move something illegal. When I confronted my parents with the truth, my mom went pale. Jake wouldn't do that, she whispered. I played the clip. Jake's voice filled the room. He'll never know. Silence. My dad looked defeated, but instead of apologizing, he muttered, "We can still fix this. Just withdraw the complaint." I shook my head. No, Dad, I'm done fixing Jake's messes. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just about a wrecked car. It was years of built-up resentment, favoritism, and manipulation. All boiling over, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't backing down. After that confrontation, everything in my family fractured. Calls stopped. Texts turned into cold, clipped messages. My mother's tone went from pleading to icy. "You've destroyed this family," she told me one night before hanging up. I remember sitting in the dark afterward, staring at my phone screen. Realizing I'd become the villain in their version of the story, Jake had been charged. And suddenly everyone was scrambling not to fix what he did, but to protect the family name. My parents started showing up at my apartment unannounced, trying to convince me to make things right. My dad said, "If you drop the complaint, the charges might get reduced. You don't want to see your brother in jail, do you?" I looked him straight in the eye. He should have thought of that before stealing from me. That night, I sat alone in silence, surrounded by unpaid bills, rec reports, and the insurance forms that still hadn't cleared. My savings were draining fast. I was missing work from dealing with this chaos, and the stress was eating away at me. Sleep was impossible. I kept replaying every moment, the laughter in that dashcam video, the lies, the betrayal. Even my friends had stopped reaching out. The whole ordeal made me look bitter, like I was overreacting. I started to question myself. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe family really was more important than justice. But then I'd remembered Jake's smug grin, the sound of him mocking me, saying I'd never find out. That memory kept me anchored in my decision. But emotionally, I was breaking. The nights got quieter, heavier. Every time the phone buzzed, I expected bad news. My parents' silence became louder than words. I was alone, completely alone, and for the first time. I wondered if standing up for myself had cost me everything, and just white was a Tuesday. Morning when my phone buzzed with a call from the detective handling the case, his tone was different this time, more focused, almost sharp. "We've recovered the full dashcam footage from your vehicle," he said. "You might want to come in and see this." I drove to the station with my heart pounding. When the video played, it showed everything: Jake speeding, laughing, and then saying something that made my blood run cold. "My brother's got full coverage. He won't even notice. I'll tell him he left the keys out again." The arrogance in his voice made my hands shake. The detective paused the footage and looked at me. "You're right." He knew exactly what he was doing. Then came the real shock. Jake's so-called friend had flipped. During questioning, he admitted the errand was for a small local dealer. And Jake had volunteered my car, promising he could handle it since his brother never says no. They found texts between them confirming it all. For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange mix of relief and fury. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't vindictive. I was right when I told my parents. My mom's face went white. My dad just shook his head. "That can't be true," he muttered. But I pulled out the report, black and white evidence, and laid it on the table. "This is who he is," I said quietly, "and you've been protecting him his entire life." My mom's voice cracked. "He's still our son, and I'm not." I snapped. "You'd rather believe a liar than face the truth." The silence that followed was the kind that felt like a wall being built. One I wasn't sure could ever be torn down. They still wouldn't apologize, still wouldn't admit I was the one wronged. But this time, I didn't need their validation, because now the truth wasn't just mine, it was undeniable. And Jake's world was about to start collapsing. Naya started to believe I'd hit my limit. Something unexpected happened. The fallout came faster than I expected. Within a week, Jake was officially charged with unauthorized vehicle use, reckless endangerment, and property damage. The news hit my parents like a wrecking ball. My mom called me sobbing, saying they're treating him like a criminal. I didn't have the heart to say what I was thinking, because he is one. The insurance company finalized their decision soon after. They declared the car a total loss and approved a payout, but only to me, the rightful owner. When the money hit my account, I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt hollow. All I could think about was how much trust had been destroyed. Just to reach this point, my dad came over unannounced one evening, his expression hard and cold. "You happy now?" he asked. "You got your money? Your brother's record is ruined. Was it worth it?" I stared at him, exhausted. "You're asking the wrong question, Dad. Was it worth his lies? His theft? His manipulation?" He scoffed. "You've always had to be right, haven't you?" I let out a bitter laugh. "No, I've just never had the luxury of being wrong and forgiven for it." That shut him up, but the damage was already done. From that point on, every family conversation was poisoned, every word dipped in resentment. My relatives whispered that I'd sold out my own brother. Even old family friends stopped calling. And yet, deep down, beneath the guilt and fatigue, I felt something shifting, a quiet strength. For once, I wasn't cleaning up Jake's mess. I wasn't apologizing for holding someone accountable. The payout wasn't justice, but it was closure in numbers. Jake had stolen something from me, destroyed it. And now the system had handed me the chance to rebuild. So that's exactly what I planned to do. But as I started looking for a new car, I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Jake wasn't the kind of person to accept consequences quietly. I used part of the insurance payout to buy something I never thought I'd afford. A newer model of the same car Jake destroyed. Sleek, silver, and spotless, it felt like redemption on 4 wheels. When I sat behind the wheel for the first time, I wasn't just driving, I was reclaiming everything Jake tried to take from me. My peace, my dignity, my sense of control. I didn't tell anyone in the family about it. But small towns have big mouths. Word got around fast, and sure enough, Jake found out. I was washing the car outside my apartment when he showed up, uninvited, his expression twisted with anger. "So, this is what you bought with the insurance money," he sneered. "Real classy, cashing in on my mistake." I looked up slowly. "Your mistake totaled my car, Jake. You're lucky I didn't sue you for more." He laughed bitterly. "You think you're better than me now? You just got lucky." "No," I said calmly. "I worked for this. You stole. That's the difference." He stepped closer, eyes flashing. "You think you won? You destroyed our family. Mom can't even sleep because of you." I took a breath, steady but sharp. "No, Jake, you destroyed it when you took what wasn't yours and lied about it." For a moment, he didn't have a comeback. Just that same arrogant smirk he used to wear when he got away with something. But this time, it didn't bother me. He couldn't touch me anymore. Not my life, not my peace. As he stormed off, I got into my car, turned the key, and let the engine hum like a quiet victory. The sound was pure freedom. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. But the story wasn't finished, because the real consequences for Jake were just beginning to unfold. News about Jake's charges spread quickly once the court date was set. Our family name, the one my parents cared so much about, started getting whispered in places they couldn't control. Old friends stopped visiting. Neighbors who used to wave suddenly looked away. My parents blamed me, of course. Mom called one afternoon, her voice weary. "You've made him unemployable," she said softly, as if it were my fault. "He can't get a job with this record. He's living at home, depressed." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. "He made himself unemployable. Mom, actions have consequences." Her tone turned sharp. "You could have prevented this." "I could have prevented it," I repeated slowly, "by letting him get away with stealing from me again." The line went silent. I could almost hear her guilt, or maybe denial, breathing through the static. After that, I stopped going to family dinners. Stopped answering messages that weren't genuine. The weight of their disappointment used to crush me, but now it just reminded me that peace sometimes means distance. I still loved them, but I couldn't keep bleeding just to make them comfortable. Weeks later, my aunt showed up unexpectedly. She stood at my door holding a box of cookies, her version of a peace offering. "Your parents won't admit it," she said quietly, "but you were right. Jake needed this." I almost laughed from the shock. "You believe me now?" She nodded. "I saw the footage. I saw the report. He didn't ruin anything. He just stopped being his shield." Her words hit hard. For years, I'd been the one absorbing every consequence Jake avoided. For once, someone finally said it out loud when she left. I sat in silence, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Not anger, not relief, but clarity. The truth had finally started to echo beyond me, and soon, even Jake would have to face the one thing he'd spent his whole life avoiding: accountability. Months passed before things finally quieted down. The legal mess was mostly behind me, though Jake still had court-ordered community service and a fine he couldn't afford to pay. My parents stopped trying to fix it, maybe because they were finally tired, or maybe because they realized there was nothing left to fix. One chilly evening, I took a drive in my new car down the same winding back road where Jake had crashed mine months earlier. The sky was painted in muted oranges and grays, and for the first time I felt completely still. The hum of the engine, the rhythm of the road, the way the light hit the hood, it all felt symbolic, like a quiet kind of victory. I thought about everything that had happened: the lies, the manipulation, the loneliness. I'd lost my brother, or maybe I'd just stopped pretending he was one. I'd lost my parents' approval too, but somewhere in the wreckage, I found something I never had before. Last I heard, he was telling people I'd set him up, like accountability was a trap he'd fallen into by accident. But it didn't matter anymore. His words couldn't touch me the way they used to. I'd learned that peace isn't about everyone liking you, it's about finally liking yourself when you look in the mirror. As I parked the car and stepped out, the cold wind hit my face, and I found myself smiling. Not because I'd won, but because I'd survived. Sometimes, the hardest part of standing up for yourself isn't facing your enemies. It's realizing your own family might be among them, but standing there. On that quiet road, I finally understood something simple yet freeing. Losing family isn't always tragedy. Sometimes, it's the only way to find freedom dressed as pain. And this time, I drove home with no guilt, just peace.